Hi, welcome to this lecture video wherein we will talk about nomenclature and formula writing. Alright, to start with, we all know the importance of names in our lives, right? Names leads to identity, which leads to something or someone, right? It's important that we have the same name for the things in able to understand each other, right? For example, lately, there's an orange that wants to change its name to Charmaine, right? So if we go to a market, let's say, pabili po ng Charmaine. So some sellers would understand this orange if they know, but some would not, right? So it's important that we have the same name for something in able to understand each other. Now, in chemistry, we have known or we witnessed how elements form a bond in order to form compounds, right? Now, every compounds in previous times has what we call a common name. For example, this sugar of lead, blue vitriol, quicklime, Epsom, etc. Now, we have 50 million chemical compounds, and these common names could not be enough, okay, to understand each other. For example, this blue vitriol could have a different name in other places, right? Since mostly these are named by appearance, for example. So there's a need, right, to come up with a systematic way of naming chemical compounds that would lead us to understand each other. That is why the names, though, and the formulas of compounds are essential in chemistry. So in chemistry, the name of compounds is done through what we call a nomenclature, coming from the Latin words nomen and calare. Okay, in naming compounds, we must first identify ions. Okay, now remember, when atoms become either gain or lose electrons, they become ions, right? So ions could either have a positive charge or negative charge, right? So positive charge when we lost an electron, negative when gained. Now positive charge elements or ions, we call it cations. Okay? And negative ones, negatively charged, are called anions. Okay? So first, let us discuss how each ions were named depending on their charge. First, for the cations formed from the metal atoms, it would have the same name as the metal. For example, for sodium ion, it's just sodium. For zinc, it's just zinc. And for aluminum, just aluminum. Right? Now, if a metal ion can form cations with different charges, so you can see it in the periodic table, there are elements that has more than one charge. So the positive charge is indicated by a Roman numeral in parentheses. For example, Fe could have either positive 2 or positive 3, right? So we write the iron, then we enclose the charge in Roman numeral into parentheses. So iron 2, for example, for Fe2 positive. Now, an older method is still widely used for naming or distinguishing the charged ions of metals. So the other one that we discussed earlier, we use the endings as either us or ik. For example, for Fe2 positive, it would be ferrous. For Fe3 positive would be ferric. Then for copper, is positive 1, cuprous, positive 2, cupric. So as you can notice, the ic, okay, or the metals ending with ic has a more positive charge than the one ending in us. But ic and us does not equate to a single value. For example, in here, cuprous is positive 1, in here it is positive 2. So just remember that ic is always greater than the us. But again, this is an older method and only recommend it if you are familiar with this. So if not, use the other convention wherein we use the name iron, for example, and then we enclose the charge in parentheses because this is more convenient and uh, less confusing instead of the us and the e. Next, for cations formed from nonmetal atoms, their names shall end in IUM. For example, this NH4 is covalently bonded since nitrogen and hydrogen are nonmetals. So NH3 is ammonia, right? Now, since it gained the charge, it becomes polyatomic ion. Ammonia will transform into ammonium. Okay, so here's a list of common cations with their formula and name. And as much as we hate to memorize, I suggest you be familiarized with this because this would be very important. After the cations, let us now go with the anions, wherein the names of anions replace the ending of the name with IDE. For example, hydrogen, if it becomes ion or anion, it becomes hydride. For oxygen, oxide. For nitrogen, nitride. Okay? And even for polyatomic anions, they also change the name into IDE. Next, when it comes to polyatomic anions containing many oxygen, okay, the names end in either ATE or ITE, 8 or I. Okay? The 8 is used for most common or representative oxyanion of the element, and I is for oxyanion that has the same charge but one oxygen atom fewer. For example, we have a nitrate, NO3. If we remove one oxygen, it becomes NO2, then we call it nitrite. For example, sulfate, SO4, remove another oxygen, it will be SO3 sulfite. Just remember that 8 is always greater than the I. Okay? Okay, now to extend the rule earlier, if the oxyanion of an element extends to 4 members, we use the prefix per and hypo. Per indicates one more oxygen than 8, and then hypo indicates one more oxygen fewer than the I. So remember, we have our chlorate earlier. This is the 8. Then chloride, the I. Now, if we have one more oxygen than 8, so from ClO3 it becomes ClO4, we add the prefix sorry, it become perchlorate. Now, if we have a chloride or one oxygen fewer than the chloride, from ClO2 becomes ClO, it's just one. We use the prefix hypo, became hypochlorite. So think of it as like stages. This is 1, hypochlorite, 2, chlorite, 3 is chlorate, and then 4 is perchlorate. Now, an ions derived from adding H plus or a proton to an oxygen ion are named by adding the prefix word hydrogen or dihydrogen, meaning this one one hydrogen, di means two hydrogens. Okay? So for example, we have a carbonate ion. If we add one hydrogen, the carbonate becomes hydrogen carbonate ion. Okay? Then if we have a phosphate, since we added two hydrogen, the name becomes dihydrogen phosphate ion. Okay? That's what it means. Again, if we have a list for cations, we also have a list for anions. And it would be better if you could be familiar with these formulas and names.